believe that we should empower the states, not soothe the states. Allow the states to solve many of their problems. We must secure the border, enforce the laws that are already there. We've got to do some homework. We've got to clean up some things to make sure that it's easy for people to hire people that are here legally. Number 3, enforce the path to citizenship that's already there. We don't need a new path to citizenship. Ask the millions of people who came here legally. Let's make it work the legal way. Then number 4, the 4th problem. Our federal government has demonstrated consistently that it cannot solve the national immigration problems that we have. In fact, I can't think of one program out of Washington, D.C. where the federal government has been successful at micromanaging something. So in order to deal with the 4th problem of the illegals that are here in the various states, empower the states to fix the states' problem, not the federal government, because they won't do it and they can't do it. Empower the states. So you've heard my common sense ideas about the economy. You've heard my common sense ideas about real energy independence. You've heard my common sense ideas about what we ought to do about immigration. And for those of you who may not be familiar with them, you can find them at hermancain.com. Yes, I'm plugging hermancain.com. C-A-I-N, like in the Bible, but I didn't kill anybody. But there's one more I want to touch on. You know, some members of Congress. Now, fortunately, we have a lot of good conservatives in Congress from Georgia who are trying to get serious and follow Representative Ryan's lead on cutting the budget. But we're never going to get serious about stemming the growth in spending if we don't get serious about restructuring these programs and not just trimming around the edges. Let's start with the biggest one that they don't like to talk about. Let's start with the biggest elephant in the room, Social Security. We can fix Social Security with an optional personal retirement option like they did in Chile 30 years ago. We can fix that problem. And as you can see, most of our problems we can fix. It's not rocket science. It's a matter of having real leadership and having the will of the American people behind you. So when the founding fathers said when any form of government becomes destructive of those ideals, those crises that I described are destructive of those ideals. And yes, just like we altered control of the House of Representatives last November, we are going to alter control of the United States Senate and the White House in 2012. Who haven't decided who you're going to support for president in 2011 and 12. Next week, Saturday, in Centennial Olympic Park in Atlanta, I will be making a major announcement and you are invited at high noon. High noon. I had a reporter ask me, well, Mr. Cain, what are you going to announce on the 21st at high noon? I said, young man, let me see if you can connect the dots. I'm going to be there with 10,000 of my closest friends starting at high noon. Do you think I am going to announce that I'm not running? Go figure. But you invited to be there. So we have a lot of work to do. A lot of work to do. And the other question that I often get is, well, Mr. Cain, why are you thinking about doing this? I happen to believe that we are all blessed with certain time on this planet, given certain talents, and blessed with certain treasures. And we all have a responsibility to use our time, our talent, and our treasures to make a difference, whatever it is. Not everybody can run for office, but everybody can do something for this great nation. Everybody can do something. And in 1999, I wasn't sure what it was that I was supposed to do. That was 12 years ago. 12 years ago, my first grandchild was born. I wasn't expected to make it to the hospital in time, to be there for the blessed event. I was at a meeting, and it took me 3 days to get home. I figured that by the time I got back, the baby would be born. My wife had already flown to Atlanta, where my daughter was living with her husband. She was there in the delivery room. I kept calling home, talking to my son. 2 days later, after the process started, Vincent, do we have a baby yet? Vincent would say, no, Dad, we don't have a baby yet. 3 days later, I was getting ready to board the plane to get back to Atlanta after some meetings that I had on the way back. I called him up, Vincent, it's been 3 days. Do we have a baby yet? He said, no, Dad. Is Melanie okay? Yes. Is the baby okay? Yes. It's been 3 days. Why don't we have a baby yet? He said, Dad, it's a slow baby. I was able to get back to Atlanta, arrived at 8:30 p.m. January 22nd, 1999. Went to Piedmont Hospital. Arrived there about 9:30. Went up to the waiting area. My son was there. Vincent, do we have a baby yet? No, Dad, we don't have a baby yet. At 9:56, my wife came out of the delivery room, looked at me, looked at my son, and put her hands on her hips, moving her head. Y'all know how the ladies can do when they're just a little bit disgusted about something. Looked at me, didn't even say, hello, honey, how was your trip? Her first words were, you have a granddaughter. I said, good. What's up, darling, with the attitude? She said, I've been with this child for 3 days and you show up and the baby is born. She was waiting on granddad before she came into the world. Then my wife said, I know she was waiting on granddad, and I got to hear that story for the rest of my life. And she will. I went into that room. I asked my daughter, was she doing okay? She said, yes. Is the baby okay? Yes. Then my daughter said, would you like to hold us? Yes. I took this little 15-minute-old baby in my arms. Looked in that little face. The first thought that went through my mind. The first thought, so help me God, was what do I do to make this a better world and a better nation? That was 12 years ago. And I didn't know the answer. The point of that story, which is a true story, it's not about us. It's about the grandchildren. It's not about us. It's about all those little faces that deserve a fair chance at the American dream like we had. It's not about us. It is about the next generation, the children and the grandchildren. It's not about us. So 12 years later, on this journey, I believe I know the answer to the question, what do I do to make this a better world? And what do I do to make this a better nation? If you join me at Centennial Olympic Park next Saturday at high noon, you'll find out. And you know, it's not about us, it's about the little faces and the children and the grandchildren. And it's also about freedom. It's about freedom. And no one summed it up better. No one expressed it better than one of the greatest presidents we ever had, Ronald Reagan, when he said, "Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We can't pass it on in the bloodstream to our children. It must be fought for and protected, or one day we will spend our sunset years telling our children and our grandchildren what the United States of America used to be like when men were free." I'm not going to have that conversation with my grandkids, and I don't think you want to have that conversation with your grandkids. The founding fathers got it right. The founding fathers got it right. We must be the defending fathers. And after months and months of traveling this country and talking to many groups, large and small, I have come to the conclusion that the American people believe that we can take back our government. I'm not going to be elected president of the United States by the political elites. I'm going to be elected president of the United States by we the people, because we the people are still in charge of this country. We must be the defending fathers. And some people aren't going to want to get on the Herman Cain train. That's okay. Some people aren't going to want to take back this government and get it off of this socialist track. That's okay. But as my grandfather used to say, on Saturdays when he would load up the wagon with all of the grandkids running around in the yard to take a wagon load of potatoes to town, we would be running around and we were excited because it was the day that Grandpa was going to take us into town. And after he hitched the two mules to the wagon, loaded up all of the potatoes, he would make an announcement to the kids who wanted to go. Them that's going, get on the wagon. Them that ain't, get out of